My son, here's how up it is, because I don't cry. I've cried a few times, and you've probably heard in different pieces of content where I've talked about one time with my daughter a few years ago I cried. But I actually cried on Saturday night for the first time in a year, and I'll tell you why.
All right, so you get the full morning me, my new mohawk. Looks hilarious as morning hair because it's like a full-on mohawk. Look at the sun light it all up. Anyway, we have our little background campground going right now. We've got the 2 tents. Hold on, buddy.
Guess what?
Hold on, buddy. We got the fire going.
Guess what?
What do you got to say, bud?
So on my cake last night, there was these toys, and there's a little person inside of this tent, and this fire, and then there's a little canoe.
Super cool. So, it did not quite work out as planned last night, but it worked out exactly like it was supposed to. I will give you a breakdown on that a little bit later, but essentially, Addie and Mommy slept in Mommy and Daddy's tent, and Blake and I ended up sleeping in his bed. I am going to be creating a video later today specifically about the breakdown of what happened from the last shot you saw last night on camera. Well, that didn't last very long, but I think Addison's getting in the tent with Mom, and Blake went inside, so I don't know what I am supposed to do. We will see. To what ended up happening, and it was actually a really beautiful night and a beautiful experience.
We camped in the backyard in tents, and my son has autism, so sensory stuff just sends him into another world, particularly when it's something that's outside of his comfort zone. He also likes predictability. He likes to be in the same bed with his weighted blanket and his stuffed animals and his fan and his sound machine and his salt lamp, and he needs his stuff. And when he has his stuff, he's good. When he doesn't have stuff, he just has higher anxiety. So it started to rain, and there was a lot of wind while we were in these fucking tents. There couldn't have been just a nice night. And so he wanted to go out on the couch, and then we were laying on the couch with him, and then he's like, I really want to go back in the tent. My daughter ended up going into the tent my wife and I had for us. And the girl spent the night out in the tent all night. And so I said to him, buddy, I was like, do you really want to try to give the tent a chance? He's like, yeah. I was like, would it make you feel more comfortable if I was in the tent with you? He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, do you do that? I was like, of course I do that. What do you mean? Of course, this is for you, for your birthday. Come on. Yeah. And so we go and we did it. And we're out there for maybe 10 minutes. And then it starts raining and thunder and lightning. And he's starting to freak out. And so I tried to get him to breathe and stay in the moment and calm down, but he just wouldn't. And then, so the tent that we were in had an internal vent door, and then it had an external rain shelter that there's a gap underneath it. It didn't go it doesn't connect to the floor. So there's a gap, right? Because it was just a rain shelter, but you still need to unzip that to get out of the tent. Well, I finally realized he's not going to calm down, and I wasn't going to force him to stay in there, obviously. And so I start trying to get out of the tent, and the zipper got stuck about 4 inches up, stuck, bad. And I could not get it unstuck because it got stuck on something on the outside of the tent, and I couldn't get my hand to it. So I couldn't get it. And he started to panic, full-blown meltdown panic. The amount of terror that I saw in him was insane. And the terror was not that he was trapped in the tent, it's that he was afraid that I was trapping him in the tent. He thought that I was intentionally keeping him in the tent. And so he ultimately, that gap that was there, he bailed. He literally squeezed himself as small as he could underneath it and bailed. And I couldn't get out. And I started yelling at my wife, not at her, but for her help. Yeah. And was sweetie, I was I really can't get out of this tent. I'm stuck. I've been trying this for 5, I cannot get out. I need you to help me get this out. Blake just bolted, please get out. I'm panicking now because I never want my kid to be afraid of me. Ever. And it was the first time I saw pure terror in his eyes. Not about being stuck in the tent, but because he thought I was trapping him in the tent. So my wife gets out, she unzips the tent, and I go inside. And my fear was confirmed because as soon as I walked in, I like reached my hand out and my kid just like pulled back from me, like hard. And so I put everything down that was in my hands and I took a step back and I said, Blake, I'm freaked out right now because I think you thought that I was trapping you in the tent. And I want to tell you right now, I wasn't. I was trying to get out. And I will not make you go out into the tent. And I'm sorry that you were afraid of the weather. And I'm sorry that whatever happened with that zipper getting stuck terrified you. And I said, but I'm in here and I'm not going to make you go back outside. But buddy, like I came in here because I was worried about you. And I was worried that you were afraid that I was trying to trap you. And he immediately melted and jumped in my arms and was like locked on me. And so then I grabbed him and I went and I sat on the couch with him in my lap. And I started crying because it freaked me the fuck out. Because the one of my worst fears is that my kids would be afraid of me for any reason. Like when all I want to do is give them power and control and safety. And so I started breaking down for my son. I said, and I was crying while I was saying it. I was like, Blake, I was like, I want you to know, like, I would never put you into a position where I was going to intentionally put you into that type of terror and pain. Like I'm all about pushing. He knows I push him. I'm like, I'm always going to push you, but I never want to push you to the point that that it's going to crush you. And I said, and that was too much. And I was legitimately trying to get you out of the tent. And I said, my number one job is to protect you. My number one job is to protect you and make sure you're safe. And I will do everything, even including giving up my own life to make sure that that happens for you. Always in life. Like there's no hesitation, no question. Like you are my son. You are my everything. Like I will never make you afraid of me. And it terrifies me that you thought I was trying to do something that scared you. And I was crying. And my son, where I was going with all this is it's okay to cry. Men crying to me is actually a sign of strength. I just don't manifest my emotions that way typically because of my own history. When I shut off physical pain, I shut off emotional pain. And although I feel now deeply, I'm so conditioned that tears are not like something that just happens naturally for me. But when it hits me hard, I cry. So my son leans back, looks at me like with this crazy look on his face. And just like, it's almost like we had a soul connection in that moment. Like he literally like looked at me and it's like he saw me in a different way for the first time, which was crazy. And then he was completely okay. And I ended up sleeping in his bed with him that night. Like we had a little slumber party because that's what made him comfortable. He couldn't even do the couch. He just like, he needed his thing. And so I went in and I did it and I just made sure he was safe and comfortable. And the next morning I said to him, I said, you looked at me in a way that I've never seen you look at me. And he said, Dad, I've never seen you cry. He's 7. He's never seen me cry. And I told him, and how does that feel for you, dude? And he goes, it makes me feel like I can't cry. Which also goes to show that like what our kids see. And I have always encouraged him like, hey buddy, like it's okay to cry. Like I've never been that parent that's like, stop crying. We don't do that. We empower our kids to feel what they feel because it's the inability to feel that keeps so many people stuck. And so, you know, I did all those things, but he's like, yeah, he's like, I don't typically see men cry. And so I told him, I said, the thing is I was conditioned not to cry for a whole lot of reasons. I want you to know it's always okay to cry. Daddy will never be upset at you for crying. Daddy will never be upset at you for feeling. And I said, but I want you to know now that you've seen this, I feel very deeply. It's just that I don't often cry because my body doesn't let me cry. There's times when I want to cry because it's the release I need, and I still can't cry in those moments typically.